Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another installment in the Teaching and Learning with Mobile Technology Summer Vodcast series. My name is Rob Power. I am an adjunct professor of educational technology with University of Ontario Institute of Technology and a member of the executive of the International Association for Mobile Learning. Today we are talking teacher preparation and pedagogical approaches to mobile learning, and I'm speaking today Dr. Dean Cristol from Ohio State University. Welcome, Dean.
Hello. Hey, Rob.
So, Dean, when we first met in Doha for mLearn 2013, we heard one of the founding directors of IAmLearn, Dr. Muhammad Ali, saying that one of the biggest hurdles or challenges to successful integration of mobile technologies in teaching and learning practice is the teachers themselves. That is their actual confidence in the technology and in their abilities to use the technology. So what can you tell us about whether or not teachers are being adequately prepared to teach with new technologies such as mobile devices? Are they being adequately prepared, and why or why not?
Okay, thanks, Rob. I'm going to give a little historical tour and maybe hopefully answer it in that way. When I got involved in mobile learning, now it's, gosh, maybe about 5-6 years ago, and I would enter a school, just a average school, not a heavily technology-driven school. Technology was almost non-existent from the sense of beyond the computer classroom or computer lab, maybe a few carts of computers going around, but that was about it. The idea of mobile devices were pretty much non-existent. And then I got involved with a particular small school system in Ohio, actually, a very tiny small school system that the director of technology had heard about this idea of using mobile devices as a tool to help kids learn. And we had done several projects. So we're talking about 5 or 6 years ago, if my memory serves me right. And they were, I hate using the term, but I'm going to use it, cutting edge in the world. The director, he was recognized around the country as one of the pioneers of using these devices. And they were nothing like the smartphones we have today. But then I would go into other schools throughout the United States, and technology was, like I said, we're pretty much in the labs and occasionally in the cars. As we move closer to today, we started seeing more technology in everyday classrooms, meaning that you would see teachers using more technology, things like smart boards, other kinds of technology beyond just having a desktop in front of each kid. And I would say I'm thinking maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, going into a school and you would see the signs that you must turn off your cell phones. And if you had your cell phones on during the day, they would be confiscated. And I'm talking about a high school. And I remember one in particular, and this high school had these signs. As soon as you walk into the school, they're posted on the door as you enter the school. And as a high school in the United States, the kids would move from classroom to classroom, similar, I think, to Canada and other places around the world. But I would also see kids hiding their use of their cell phones. I'm not talking smartphones because smartphones really weren't prevalent at this time. And I would pull a kid aside and ask them, you know, what are you doing with it? And they would say the standard. They maybe would be texting or leaving a message, but it was always hiding. And obviously, me being the adult, I'm not stupid in the sense that I know teachers were recognizing that, but in that sense, they were turning their head to it, even though they had signs plastered around this particular high school. And I had seen this in other high schools, but I want to use this high school as an example. And of course, I because of my interest in mobile learning, I started asking them, are you ever using this for your own personal learning? And they look at me like, what? What are you talking about? And I would have to ask them specific kinds of questions. Were you looking up information? Were your teachers encouraging you to look up any kinds of information? You have to also think that the apps in those days weren't that sophisticated, in the sense of there weren't many that were really driven for education. Many of the apps were for games and other avenues. And they would look at me like I was crazy. Well, today, if I go into most schools, there is some aspect of mobile learning. Is it good? Sometimes it is good. Is it not so good? Sometimes. Is it all right? Yeah. So I'm seeing many different types of the use of mobile learning, using mobile devices. Let me keep on saying that instead of just mobile learning. But then when you would ask the kids or ask the teachers specifically, how are you using these devices? Many of them can't really give you very concrete ways, with the exception of just finding information in a quick manner, because maybe their connection was faster than the computer, or there wasn't a computer in the classroom. So, but formally, meaning were the teachers being prepared? Were they learning how to use these devices as I don't want to just say simply as a tool, but as part of the learning process, not as an add-on, not as something that we just think of as something extra, but as an essential part. And I don't want to use the tool again, an essential part of the learning process. And many of them would say no. Some might have gone through some workshops, but that wasn't really the focus, about actually using these devices in a manner that learning takes place. That being said, teachers are overwhelmed, as we all know. But to me, the foundation of any kind of learning, they really have to learn the process. They aren't going to learn it on their own, most of the teachers. And so they have to learn it in some kind of formal manner. And I would say I don't see that very, very much out in schools. Professional development workshops are kind of hit or miss. It might be part of something, but it's not the essence of what teachers should, as I think, should be learning, and how to use these devices. I'm not, when I say using these devices, I'm not talking about content. I'm just saying, how would you use this device as part of the learning process? Because teachers are smart, they can go out and find the content readily now. So that's not where the deficit is. I see it's actually how they can incorporate it, and I would say they're still not using it in that way. So I hope I answered that question. I know it's kind of a long-winded answer to a very seemingly complex problem, as I see in our world, in our learning world.
So it sounds like there's no simple explanation or no simple solution, but is there anything that we can do to better prepare teachers to effectively use mobile technologies in the classroom while they're still in teacher preparation?
Well, I would say yes. And unfortunately, and I'm at one of the largest universities in the United States, internationally recognized, our education program, we're constantly ranked as one of the top programs in the United States. We get graduate students from all over the world coming and getting their PhDs and EDDs. But yet, when it comes to mobile devices, mobile learning, now I'm talking about mobile learning, it's very hit or miss. I don't want to castigate or attack any of my colleagues, but many of my colleagues don't see that as an important part of the learning process. So for example, I teach a course to my undergraduate students who are being prepared to be teachers. It's a basic, we call it a digital literacy course. And one aspect, in fact, Rob has spoken to them over the last couple of years, that it's part of the process. Okay, it's part of how to use the digital social world, media world as part of the learning process. But that's one course. It's not embedded in the other courses. So it really could be, depending on who your professor is, in your learning to become a teacher, rather than it. To me personally, what I've learned in the world of learning about technology and learning, that it has to be embedded in every course curriculum. It's not something that should be a course by itself. And unfortunately, in my world, that's where I'm seeing. Now, in other universities, they're more technology advanced in the way of their thinking. But where I'm from, I feel like quite often I'm fighting a battle. Even though we have a whole department that one of their sections is devoted for educational technology. But again, it's more hit or miss when it comes to the basic teacher preparation programs. So,
All right.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, sorry for interrupting.
No, I just want to just reiterate in saying that I think it should be embedded in all the courses that we teach, the use of technology. But again, many of our faculty don't have the background, interest, and that is also, you know, a detriment to our students. But unfortunately, we see that a lot, and it's just not Ohio State. I would say in many universities.
Okay, well, thank you, Dean. Is there anything that we could do to help the current teaching workforce? What could we do to better prepare them for using mobile technologies?
One, I think it becomes contextual in the sense that we need to know what they know. Okay, so before we can make specific decisions, and learning, as we have learned and see, learning is very, as I said, contextual in the sense of, let me first start there and then I'll get a little more specific. We have to go and find out what they know, what they do, meaning the teachers, how they, if obviously we're talking about mobile learning, how are they using these devices in their classroom? How are they using it in their own teacher preparation for teaching the kids in the classroom? So we have to start there. If we just impose our will, meaning our thinking on them, it's never going to work. Researchers bear that out in professional development work. One of my colleagues, she and I do a lot of work together, and her expertise in professional development. And I mean, she will constantly say that we can't impose things. Teachers won't accept it. We first have to know what they know and then what they want. Has become pretty obvious. And I also want to, what I have seen over the years in my work with educational technology, we have done a lot of imposing on teachers and educational communities. We've never asked the users, being the students as well as the teachers, what do they need and what do they know? And then from there we can make smarter decisions from a software perspective as well as a hardware perspective. So that's really where we need to begin. And then we don't need to have these grand, as I see it, anymore, these grand professional development opportunities for teachers. We can specifically target the individual teacher's needs. There's plenty of ways that we can do that would make the learning worthwhile. I'm working on a project, for example, that we have teachers all across the United States, hundreds of teachers, and they're pre-service teachers, but they're gaining their license, so they have to learn their content. So there's a lot of e-coaching going on. So for example, they aren't required to go for each coaching sessions, or we'll have sessions set up, but they go to them to help themselves to individually grow. And that's what I'm saying, that if we just say all the teachers have to attend this session at 9 o'clock because it's an important session and you're going to get this information, that to me is ridiculous in today's world. We don't need that kind of stuff. We could be more individualized in the learning. And so getting back to what I originally said, that I think first we have to find out what they need, what they know, and then we can individualize their learning needs. And I think that's also a cost-efficient way of doing things too.
All right, Dean, let's shift focus here just a little bit. What advice can you give teachers or schools about pedagogical approaches to mobile learning? Are there any pedagogical best practices that that teachers should be following to get them started with using mobile technologies?
I would say, you know, here I just said about finding out what teachers need. As a educator, I would go to my students and ask them their needs. What do they need to know? Okay, what do they know? First of all, obviously, and really start from there. We can individualize the kids' learning based on what they know and what they need to know. Okay, rather than, again, we don't need to have these grand learning opportunities that maybe do not meet the needs of the individualized student. Right now this summer, I am working with a lab in Ohio at an Air Force base called Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and they have a program with kids, high school kids, and teachers about learning technology. I'm going to simplify it. Now, these kids are, some of them have just graduated from high school, some are in high school, some of the teachers are high school teachers, middle school teachers, and elementary teachers. Some of these kids are amazing in their knowledge, and their levels of knowledge are pretty rudimentary. And if the people in this lab just said, okay, we're going to start from this point, everyone's going to learn this, it would be kind of ridiculous, because some people would be bored, as well as some, if you're talking about some pretty high level use of technology, they would have no idea what's going on. So I think that to me is a good pedagogical practice in finding what the individual needs. In essence, as my wife and my colleague, and Rob knows her, Belinda Gimbert, who is also a professor at Ohio State, she really believes that eventually this world of the walled school will disappear, you know, and we're seeing that, obviously, but maybe in our lifetime we'll see that, because we no longer need to teach people in large groups. We can individualize their own learning practices. And so that's where I would, excuse me, I hope I'm answering that question, but that's kind of where I'm seeing the world happening. And that in my own teaching, I'm starting to do that as well. It's a little bit harder, but it also, I think, helps my own students learn a lot more and really understand things a lot better and more than in my previous ways of teaching. And I'm talking about face-to-face teaching as well as online teaching, because I do both. And I really do, I'm starting to really teach in that manner, to be more individualized in their own learning.
All right, Dean, thank you for that. Is there anything else that you'd like to comment on or discuss before we wrap up this vodcast?
I want to talk about, and I mentioned this off camera to Rob. I have been doing some work in the last couple of years on digital citizenship. That I have my hand in many different things, and as Rob knows, and this area of digital citizenship has a real impact on mobile learning. And the reason is, and let me kind of backtrack. First of all, we developed this survey looking at how people use social media, specifically educators and students, how they use social media, not just as a practice of behavior. How do they practice, or excuse me, how do they behave online? That's a more of the traditional, simple way of describing digital citizenship. What we're after is how they're using this world of social media for political, for economic, for social decisions, rather than looking at how they behave. And obviously, in the past few years, with the Arab Spring, with what's just recently happened in the United States, and what happened in France, what's happening in Europe, what's happening again in Turkey, that one of the things that I see immediately is the use of mobile technology in this world. And that's kind of what we're looking at. How are teachers using this world as an avenue for getting their students to learn more about the world? I know I'm simplifying that, and my colleagues would kind of laugh at me, but that's in essence what we're looking at. And so these devices become even more important than previously, in the sense of having people really communicate with others who are like-minded or different-minded, but able to communicate at a deeper level than just socially communicating and finding out what you're doing. So if you're interested in that, please contact me, and I can talk to you more in depth about that. And we have put out a few articles now in publication, and we're putting out another one where we did a large-scale study of over 400 teachers around the United States about their views on using this concept of digital citizenship. So that's where I'm seeing the world, for me personally, mobile learning happening. It's not just this formalized learning that when I first came into this area of mobile learning, it's really kind of broadened and gotten, as I see, deeper and more global.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. Thank you for your insights today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for this latest installment of the Teaching and Learning with Mobile Technology Summer Vodcast series. Thank you again, Dean, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot, Rob. Take care, everyone.